Historic breakdown of India-Canada ties. Trudeau declares diplomatic war.
Canada and India have a long and storied history rooted in people-to-people ties, business and trade. But we cannot abide by what we're seeing right now.
India puts Trudeau government on notice. Envoys thrown out, relations burn. Furious India gives it right back. India-Canada showdown.
The last 24 hours have been the worst for relations between India and Canada. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has bitten off way more than he can chew by deciding to wage a diplomatic war with India. After openly lying about a conversation with Modi at the recent ASEAN summit in Laos, Trudeau has displayed his signature insecurity by deploying Canada's government machinery to continue the ambiguous allegations that were first made by him last year over the killing of Khalistani terrorist Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada. Only this time, Trudeau is even more of a laughingstock because nearly everyone, including his own party, sees his move as a laughably obvious attempt to distract from the whirlpool that threatens to sink his domestic political career. In recent months, Trudeau has found himself grappling with a series of domestic issues that have significantly dented his political standing and threatened his future career in politics. Record low popularity ratings, a rebellion by 20 MPs from his own party demanding Trudeau's ouster, humiliating defeats in recent by-elections in bastions, his own ally Jagmeet Singh abandoning him, not wanting to be dragged down by Trudeau, a worsening housing crisis in Canada, public anger over rising prices and crime, and damning proof of Chinese interference in previous elections won by Trudeau have all made the Canadian Prime Minister a deeply unpopular, very desperate man who badly needs a distraction. And that's where India comes in. Knowing full well that the Khalistan issue is emotive enough and likely to elicit an escalatory response from India, Trudeau chose this as his weapon of mass distraction. And as we've seen from the fallout over the last 24 hours, Trudeau clearly chose well, but he has basically bitten off more than he can chew, and I'll explain why. It is important for the people of Canada and India to know that Justin Trudeau has severely, first off, harmed relations between the two countries purely to save his skin and buy some time perhaps to breathe and recoup from the disastrous all-round attacks he's facing domestically in Canada. It's a time-tested method used by world leaders when they're in any serious soup at home, point a finger abroad and talk about an external threat. The truth is, however, Trudeau has never been more unpopular than he is now in Canada, and it's having an effect on his ability to navigate his trembling minority government till Canada's next election scheduled for October 2025. All polls in the country show that if elections were held today in Canada, Trudeau would be obliterated. A series of opinion polls have indicated that public confidence in the Trudeau government has hit record lows, driven by concerns over economic mismanagement, rising costs of living, and other many pressing issues. Trudeau's Liberal Party's embarrassing defeat in recent by-elections in Montreal and Toronto further underscores his decline. Losing traditionally liberal strongholds and failing to make inroads in key regions has left his party vulnerable as it heads into an uncertain political future under Trudeau's leadership. To distract from that, he's decided to risk 250,000 Indian students in Canada, nearly 2 million Canadian Indians, people of Indian origin in that country, and an otherwise healthy old relationship between two large democracies. That is what he has risked for saving his own skin. With more escalations likely ahead from both sides, Trudeau's desperation is also likely to cost Canada and India billions, something Canada can ill afford at this time. One of the most critical issues that has tarnished Trudeau's leadership is the housing crisis in that country. Canada's housing market has become increasingly unaffordable for many citizens, particularly in major cities like Toronto and Vancouver. Home prices have surged, and a lack of affordable housing options has led to widespread frustration among Canadians who are struggling to find a place to live without breaking the bank. In Canada's history, never has homelessness been as high as it is under Justin Trudeau. Proof of Chinese interference in at least 2 elections that Trudeau won has also led to widespread anger against the Canadian Prime Minister and his party and raised questions about the integrity of Canada's electoral system. Trudeau has protested innocence, but his track record means nobody, including his own party, is in any mood to believe him. While Trudeau's accusations are serious, he has further destroyed Canada's reputation, such as it is, by failing to provide any evidence whatsoever to support claims of Indian involvement in the killing of a Khalistani terrorist last year. Worse, as an indicator of just how desperate Trudeau is to divert his domestic audience from his disastrous unpopularity and track record, Trudeau actually had his federal police name India's High Commissioner Sanjay Verma to Canada and other officials, thereby painting a dangerous target on them, very much the same way that Khalistani terror groups have been doing for the last 2 years. In other words, Trudeau, in his pathetic, embarrassing, demeaning effort to bend over backwards to curry favor with Khalistani groups in Canada, has deployed the Canadian government to behave like those groups. That is the painful truth of what Trudeau has done to a once proud country, but one with a troubled legacy, it must be said, of providing a safe haven to terrorists, including Khalistanis, assassins, and criminal gangsters. By drawing public attention to a high-profile international dispute like this one that he's opened with India, Trudeau clearly hoped to rally nationalistic sentiments and distract from the more pressing issues facing Canadians at home. This approach allows Trudeau to shift the narrative and present himself as a leader standing up for Canadian sovereignty, when ironically the only sovereignty Trudeau is really worried about right now is his own. So desperate is Trudeau that in his press conference earlier today, he made a distinction between South Asians and the Sikh community. Can you believe that? He knows that Sikhs cannot be separated from India. A faith, Sikhs, born in undivided India with roots in Nankana Sahib, Kartarpur Sahib, and the formation of the Khalsa in Anandpur Sahib. This community, the Sikhs, played a pivotal role in the downfall of both the British and the Mughal empires. To distance them from India is like disowning figures like Banda Bahadur, Hari Singh Nalwa, Kartar Singh Sarbha, and even Bhagat Singh. But that is what Trudeau is trying to do in order to be loved and cherished by Khalistani terrorists. Trudeau has gambled with the lives of hundreds of thousands of Canadian Indians, many of whom have close ties to India. He has cast to the wind an old relationship, all because he feels the ground slip beneath his feet. He's now officially the smallest leader in the world. There is none smaller today, viewer, than Justin Trudeau. Well, this total collapse of India-Canada diplomatic ties over the last 24 hours has been at breakneck speed. It began in the evening and it has escalated relentlessly over the last 24 hours. After recalling its High Commissioner and other diplomats from Canada, India expelled 6 top Canadian diplomats, including its acting High Commissioner and Deputy High Commissioner from the country. They've got 4 days to leave the country. Canada has now hinted at imposing economic sanctions on India, and they can be clear that reciprocal action will be taken. Canada's foreign minister has said that expulsion of Canadian diplomats in India was a tough measure by India as per the Vienna Convention. It's clear that India will not take Justin Trudeau and his government's provocations lying down with diplomatic ties downgraded. India has drawn the red line for Justin Trudeau. The Canadian charge d'affaires was summoned by New Delhi on Monday evening. Hours later, he too was expelled. But what led to this diplomatic face-off? The trigger was the Trudeau government designating the Indian High Commissioner and other diplomats in Canada's capital as persons of interest in an ongoing investigation in Canada, thereby painting a target on their backs and endangering the lives of Indian diplomats in Canada. Canada claims that the Indian government agents were linked to murders and violent acts and alleged interference in Canada's democratic processes. While Trudeau claimed he had credible proof, the Indian government maintains that no evidence, not a single shred of evidence, has been shared by Canada.
I know the events of the past year and today's revelations have shaken many Canadians, particularly those in the Indo-Canadian and Sikh community. Many of you are angry, upset, frightened. I get that. This shouldn't happen. Canada and India have a long and storied history rooted in people-to-people ties, business and trade. But we cannot abide by what we're seeing right now. Canada fully respects the sovereignty and territorial integrity of India, and we expect the Indian government to do the same for Canada. As Prime Minister, it is my responsibility to provide reassurance to those who are feeling their safety has been compromised, but most importantly, it is my responsibility to take action and to never hesitate in doing what is necessary to protect Canadians. At the end of last week, I highlighted how incredibly important the meeting between our national security advisors in Singapore this weekend was going to be. He told me that he was aware of that meeting. I impressed upon him that it needed to be taken very, very seriously. The response of the Indian government has been to deny, to obfuscate, to attack me personally and the integrity of the Government of Canada and its officials and its police agencies.
The NDP are calling for more severe action. You've expelled diplomats, but they're saying sanctions are warranted given the severity of the allegations leveled today. Is the federal government considering sanctions against India? And if it's not sanctions, what other steps are you considering taking?
So today was a really important step. When you look at what is available in our toolbox, expulsing diplomats is one of the highest the highest and the toughest measure that a country can take under the Vienna Convention. For the rest, we'll continue to push India to make sure that they cooperate. We'll continue to engage with our Five Eyes partners. We'll continue to engage with also all our G7 partners, and everything is on the table.
In February 2024, the RCMP created a multidisciplinary team to investigate and coordinate efforts to combat this threat. The team has learned a significant amount of information about the breadth and depth of criminal activity orchestrated by agents of the Government of India. Investigations have revealed that Indian diplomats and consular officials based in Canada leveraged their official position to engage in clandestine activities such as collecting information for the Government of India, either directly or through their agents, and other individuals who acted voluntarily or through coercion.
Now, you'd think that the expulsion of high commissioners on both sides, the withdrawal of diplomats, and very incendiary statements issued by both sides, Canada and India, is the worst that relations could possibly get. But I'm here to tell you that you'd be wrong, because there are many more escalatory options on both sides that could still happen, that could make Indo-Canadian relations even worse than they already are. I know it's hard to believe, but here are some of the things that India possibly can do. Option number one, India could forge partnerships with very good non-Canadian universities to absorb the demand of Indian students. Nearly 250,000 Indian students currently study in Canada. If India were to somehow pull the plug and bar Indian students from studying in Canada, it would have a devastating impact. It could paralyze Canada's education financial system, into which billions in Indian fees actually go. Action number 2, that's possible. What if India cancels all OCI cards of Canadian Desis who are seen to be supporting Khalistan? The impact it would have, Khalistanis will think twice about supporting this so-called movement. Action number 3, possibly, suspend property rights of Khalistani supporters until new visas are issued, and that will, of course, take its own time and will require more stringent scrutiny and procedures. The impact of this is Khalistanis could en masse give up support to this ridiculous non-movement that's being supported by the Canadian government. Action number 4, suspend multiple entry visas to suspect Canadian Desis. Impact, community-level blowback against the Trudeau government will happen, and it will have a viral effect. It is one of the options that the Indian government may be considering at this point. Action number 5, activate trade sanctions against Canada, just like Canada is considering against India. As a top 10 trading partner of Canada, it could cost Canada billions of dollars in profits. And remember, there is a huge imbalance as far as trade is concerned. India is in a position of advantage as far as Canada is concerned. It would have a major impact. Remember, there are many financial institutions, pension funds that have billions of dollars in investments and exposures here in India. Should the government at some appropriate level decide to freeze assets or take some kind of action in that respect, while unlikely, the fact that things are escalating in such an aggressive and belligerent manner means nothing can or should be ruled out. I want to bring in India Today's Shashank Bhattu, who's been looking at the nuts and bolts of what has been one of the most dramatic 24 hours in anything we've covered in diplomacy. Shashank, I wonder if you feel the same. And most of us are wondering how much worse it can get. I've listed some of the things that the Indian government could possibly take action on, in case there are further provocations from Canada. But what are you hearing from within the system? I think the Indian government has signaled that it is in a absolutely no mood to take anything lying down. But the big question is, what could we see happen next between the two countries?
Well, Shiv, you very rightly began by talking about trade and the impact of billions of dollars of trade that India and Canada have with each other. Well, the simple fact of the matter is that there's a free trade agreement that is on the anvil between India and Canada, and that conversation is not going to be going anywhere. We know that Canadian super funds, asset management companies, etc., want to invest a lot in India. They have invested billions in this country, and presumably they would want to do more because, as you very rightly pointed out, the Canadian economy is not in a good way right now. It wants to exploit markets like India with its 1.4 billion people. And India, of course, if Canada and India, these political tensions continue, that is going to be something that Canadian businesses will hate to miss out on because of Justin Trudeau's inept handling of the crisis. India, you personally, I think, have also pointed out, some of the collaborations on defense, for example. I can recall from my own reporting that Canada has wanted to do things like defense exercises with India that would benefit its own military. That seems increasingly difficult. You yourself have talked about, the potential impact on deals like the Striker vehicle system. That's going to be something that's going to be important to look at. I think what India is also going to do is really go on a diplomatic offensive now and try to shore up support from countries that basically go to them and say that, look, are you going to back Justin Trudeau, someone who has offended pretty much everyone in international politics, whether that be his own people, whether that be China, whether that be India, whether that be his own partners in the G7. Are you really going to back him, or are you going to back India, the partner that you want to work with? So you can already see the impacts of this already happening. Justin Trudeau and his people have been going around to G7 countries saying that we have the support of Five Eyes nations. Well, Australia is a Five Eyes nation. Its minister is right now in India, unveiling new visas for young Indians going into Australia. They're not interested in getting involved in what's happening here. The Prime Minister of the UK has been spoken to by the Canadians. The UK hasn't even released a statement acknowledging that this conversation happened. So already you're seeing New Zealand also released a statement saying that, look, we're not getting involved in what's happening between India and Canada. So you're already seeing this massive diplomatic isolation. India is going to step up that pressure diplomatically to make sure and really put that stark choice in front of people. And Canada is going to realize very, very soon that it is isolated. It does not have the support it needs. So it's going to be a diplomatic humiliation as well as economic trouble and defense trouble for Canada.
Very interesting. And we're going to have to see, which of these options India actually activates depending on how Canada chooses to escalate. The point is, Trudeau has already pushed the boat way too far out to sea now to pull it back. The dogs of war, as it were, have been released, and it would be an embarrassing slight on his own reputation if he were to suddenly and abruptly scale down the intensity of his attack on India right now. So the war is being waged. It can only get worse. Shashank, appreciate it. Thanks very much for putting that into perspective for us. Now, amidst this total breakdown of ties between India and Canada, Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, as you saw in that excerpt from his press conference, has made very serious allegations also against the Indian government specifically, citing a Washington Post article comprised obviously of leaked material directly from the Canadian government, which has, instead of saying it themselves, used Washington Post to say what they wanted to say. They've accused India of supporting criminal activities. He stated that Canada has provided all evidence, which is not true, but India has formally rejected these claims, saying, you haven't shared a single shred of evidence with us since you raised this matter in September last year. So for 13 months now, no evidence has been supplied. Trudeau also mentioned that Indian agents were involved in the killing of Nijjar, which is now a bit of a broken record because India said, it's the same old stuff. You said this last year and we're still waiting for you to give us evidence because, as we've said, we're happy to take some kind of action or at least investigate if you give us some evidence, which Trudeau's government has not. Trudeau said that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police has clear and compelling evidence that agents of the Indian government are involved in activities threatening public safety, including clandestine operations and coercion targeting South Asian Canadians. He revealed that Canadian officials had made multiple attempts to collaborate with Indian authorities, but these efforts were rejected, and that's the reason why the Canadian government took the dangerous step of naming India's High Commissioner in a statement and calling him a person of interest, and thereby endangering the life of an Indian national in Canada. They also alleged, remember, something that has led to a great deal of hilarity and derision, including within Canada, by mentioning Lawrence Bishnoi as a possible link to what's happening, claiming that India's Research and Analysis Wing, India's external intelligence agency, used the Lawrence Bishnoi gang to extend their presence in Canada.
Canada is a country rooted in the rule of law, and the protection of our citizens is paramount. That's why, when our law enforcement and intelligence officials began pursuing credible allegations that agents of the Government of India were directly involved in the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, on Canadian soil, we responded. While attempts have been made by the RCMP and national security officials to work with the Government of India and Indian law enforcement counterparts on this matter, they have been repeatedly refused. This is why, this weekend, Canadian officials took an extraordinary step. They met with Indian officials to share RCMP evidence which concluded 6 agents of the Government of India are persons of interest in criminal activities. And despite repeated requests to the Government of India, it has decided not to cooperate.
It is targeting the South Asian community, but what we've seen is there's specific targeting of pro-Khalistan elements in Canada, or members of the pro-Khalistan movement. Just in order to preserve the integrity of the investigations that are being conducted by our police of jurisdiction partners, I won't be providing any further details in regards to the specificity of those investigations. But what we've seen is from an RCMP perspective, is the use of organized crime elements. And I will say and it's been publicly attributed and claimed by one organized crime group in particular, which is the Bishnoi group. So that's what we're seeing here in Canada. And we believe that that group is connected to agents of the Government of India.
After decades of one of the healthiest cross-cultural, multi-level diplomatic relations between two large democracies, under Justin Trudeau, it has taken just 13 months for India-Canada relations to reach their lowest point in history. Let me take you through how it all began on September the 18th, 2023, when Justin Trudeau first accused India of involvement in Nijjar's murders. He only talked about allegations and evidence, none of which has been provided to India. On September the 19th, India dismissed Trudeau's claims as absurd. Both countries decided to expel some of each other's diplomats, not their high commissioners. On September the 20th, 2023, India urged citizens in Canada to exercise caution. 22nd September 2023, India suspended issuing any new visas for Canada, to Canadians. October the 3rd, 2023, India told Canada to repatriate 41 diplomats by October the 10th last year. They were finally flown out very, very quickly. On October 20th, 2023, Canada withdrew 41 diplomats from India as per India's orders. On the 20th of October last year, Canada accused India of violating the Vienna Convention. India rejected these allegations. On October the 14th this year, India withdrew its High Commissioner from Canada after Canada put out a statement saying that the Indian High Commissioner Sanjay Verma was a person of interest in an investigation regarding violent crimes. India then went ahead and expelled 6 Canadian diplomats, including the acting High Commissioner and Charge d'Affaires from the country. So September 18th, 2023 to October 14th, 2024. 13 months, absolute mayhem in India-Canada relations. Now, what about the meltdown? What about the fallout of what has taken place under Justin Trudeau? Who all does it impact, and what kind of fallout is it going to have? Let's just put some facts on the table for you, viewer, and then I'll explain it to you. Number one, 40% of international students in Canada come from right here. They come from India. So you can imagine what kind of effect pulling all of them out would have on the Canadian system. Number two, Indian students add $16.3 billion to Canada's economy every single year. Number three, Indian students bring key expertise to Canada because many choose to stay back and either teach or work in Canada, conduct research, become part of the Canadian system. And Indians, as always, are considered among the highest in terms of all of these categories. Number four, India could block Canada's inclusion in key international groups. This is another fallout that could take place because India is a country with rising influence among many, many regional blocs. Canada's marginalization in Indo-Pacific institutions where Trudeau himself has made something of a flagship effort to increase Canada's importance. India could have veto powers on Canada's expansion in the Indo-Pacific. So this is Justin Trudeau, to save his own skin, taking a huge gamble with a country in order to appease a small band of Khalistani terrorists in Canada. Is Trudeau's desperate stunt a result of his precarious political position? Of course it is. I answered that question right off the bat at the beginning of this show. But there is more to it. The man on your screen, Canadian politician and Member of Parliament Jagmeet Singh, leader of the New Democratic Party or NDP, is key to Justin Trudeau's government and his politics. The leader of the NDP and a former ally of Prime Minister Trudeau has called for more diplomatic sanctions against India and a ban on the RSS in the aftermath of the India-Canada ties hitting rock bottom. Jagmeet Singh's NDP helped prop up Trudeau's Liberal Party government in 2022. Singh's pro-Khalistan separatist sentiments are very well established. He's even suspected to have sheltered Khalistani sympathizers. Jagmeet Singh has attended rallies honoring Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. His party, the NDP, enjoys extraordinary leverage with the Liberals, but sniffing blood in the water and sniffing Trudeau's sinking reputation both domestically and globally, a very cunning Jagmeet Singh has decided to hang Trudeau out to dry, distancing himself from Trudeau, claiming to symbolically cut ties from him, but is still saving his skin by supporting him in Parliament and ensuring that the Trudeau government doesn't fall. So those are the two faces of this man, Jagmeet Singh. Remember his face. You're going to be seeing a lot of him in the days and the weeks ahead. Now, India is stepping into the probe, meanwhile, behind the foiled assassination plot of Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, Khalistani terrorist who lives and operates from American soil in the United States. India is sending an inquiry committee to probe the allegations against its officials by the United States. And I want our viewers to look very carefully at how differently India is dealing with Canada and how differently it's dealing with the United States. There's a reason for it. In Washington, D.C., the probe panel will investigate the charges leveled, including the accused Nikhil Gupta's alleged role to its government employees. Remember, the United States is officially deeming as a citizen and protecting Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, a man who openly threatened an Air India flight, a man who has openly published bounties on Indian diplomats and Indian officials, and a man who has threatened violence against Indian citizens in different parts of the world, including in the United States. That is the man that the United States is officially protecting. Nikhil Gupta was extradited to the United States from the Czech Republic. He allegedly tried to hire the hitman to assassinate terrorist Pannu on US soil and was indicted by the US Department of Justice. Not just that, the US also alleged that Gupta was hired by an Indian government employee to carry out the killing. Former RAW officer Vikram Yadav, who was arrested in Delhi, is, however, currently out on bail. Vikram Yadav was accused by the US agency of being involved in a conspiracy to murder terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, an official protectee of the US government. For the first time in nearly a decade, an Indian External Affairs Minister is in Pakistan. That's right, Dr. S. Jaishankar landed a short while ago in Islamabad, Pakistan to attend the 23rd Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit that's being hosted by Pakistan this year. External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar arrived for the two-day summit, but India has clearly ruled out any bilateral or even informal talks with Pakistan on the sidelines of this summit. It will be the first time in over 9 years that an Indian foreign minister has traveled, as I said, as ties between the two neighbors remain frosty over Kashmir and cross-border terrorism from Pakistan and POK. In preparation for the summit, Pakistani authorities have taken extensive measures to address ongoing political unrest and terrorist violence, state-sponsored terrorism that is. Troops have been deployed throughout Islamabad, and hundreds of supporters of jailed opposition leader Imran Khan have been arrested.
Here at the Media Facilitation Center of the SCO in Islamabad, which is also known as the Pakistan-China Friendship Center, there are about 200 media delegates who have arrived to cover the SCO meetings. And from India, in terms of delegation, Dr. Jaishankar will represent India. There are about 300-strong delegation that has arrived with the Chinese Premier, who is on a state visit to Pakistan at a time when Chinese nationals have come under attack. These are boards that have been put up by Pakistan or various member state countries depicting what the country is really famous for. And here we have the India board that has been put up, and it shows the Taj Mahal. Likewise, there are many other countries who've been represented over here. And in terms of the conversations and the meetings, we do know that terrorism for India is a big issue, which certainly could come up when the country statements are being made by various leaders. But in terms of bilateral conversations, Dr. Jaishankar clearly has ruled out any bilateral meeting with his Pakistani counterpart. What could be important over here is the other bilateral meetings that Dr. Jaishankar could have with various other leaders. The Iranian delegation coming over here is going to be important at a time when there is a war going on between Israel and Iran, and over the Palestine and Gaza issue. So there are other areas of importance when it comes to security, trade, connectivity that are part of the SCO conversations, and that certainly is going to be of focus for various leaders over here and the member states. Geeta Mohan, reporting for India Today. From Pakistan, Mumtaz Zahra Baloch. Thank you so much, Ms. Baloch, for speaking with India Today Network. Beginning with the SCO, it's a massive summit. It comes at a time when Pakistan was reeling under a lot of pressure, economic stress. What are the big takeaways from this summit?
My first message is that first of all, welcome to Pakistan. And second, perhaps you would see that not everything that you see on the media may not always be the same when you're seeing it from the other side of the border. So we hope that this will be an opportunity for you to see for yourself the situation in Pakistan. Secondly, this will be a conference which is the second highest, it is the second highest forum of SCO. And Pakistan is committed to SCO. Pakistan and India became members at the same time, 2017. And we expect to have a long-term relationship with this organization. This is the first time Pakistan is hosting the heads of government meeting. Our objective is to play a leadership role as the chair of this meeting, so that we bring together all members of SCO, develop a consensus on economic issues, on climate change, on other aspects of socio-economic development, poverty alleviation, and bring out a positive, forward-looking declaration.
There are many meetings on the sidelines that take place, and the big question will be that will there be anything on the sidelines between India and Pakistan, because Dr. Jaishankar, ahead of coming to Pakistan, has already ruled out a bilateral between the two leaders.
Yes, he has done that, and that's what we are also expecting. There are no bilateral meetings taking place.
Okay, but just the larger perspective in terms of where India and Pakistan are headed, do you think there will be a time when there'd be a conducive environment where both countries agree to really sit across the table and have a conversation?
I'm an optimistic person. One day, perhaps, when as you said, conducive environment, that is very important. When the conducive environment is there, it is important for the countries of this region to work together to basically respond to the challenges that we face in this region, and to ensure that our people live in peace with each other.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
बस हिंदी में एक दो सवाल हिंदी में कर लें आज तक के लिए.
India and the United States have just signed one of their biggest ever defense deals. India and the US have signed a 32,000 crore rupee deal for 31 US-built Sea Guardian armed drones for the Indian Armed Forces. The deal is for 31 Sea Guardian drones manufactured by General Atomics, the US company that builds the legendary Predator armed drone as well. This is a huge boost for India's air power and deterrent arsenal. These are drones that are highly capable, much more capable than anything that India currently has in its arsenal. 16 of these will go to the Indian Navy, and 8 each will be operated by the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force. The first of these drones will be delivered to the armed forces in 4 years or less from now at 32,000 crore rupees. This is a complicated contract. It's not about 32,000 crores for just these 31 drones. There's a great deal of maintenance. There's a readiness and a maintainability and availability contract. There is maintenance, repair and overhaul facilities that are being set up in India. There is a transfer of technology component as well. In all respects, a very, very big deal, especially since drones of this kind, which are considered strategic assets that are used largely by the US Central Intelligence Agency and not by the armed forces of the United States. These are highly protected, sensitive pieces of equipment that the United States only shares with its very closest friends. And in fact, India is being given these drones, sold these drones, even though the US hasn't provided the same technology to many other countries that have wanted the same thing, including some NATO allies. India Today's defense correspondent Shivani Sharma is with me live. Shivani, it has taken a long time coming, if I'm not mistaken, over 8 years since India had first expressed interest in acquiring weaponized drones from the United States. The Trump administration, the Biden administration, but finally it's happening. It's happened, in fact. The drone deal has been signed. It took its while, but the day is finally here. Tell us why these drones are going to be a game changer, Shivani.
Shiv, these drones will be a game changer because these are not ordinary drones. These are strategic drones which are also equipped with they have weapons in them. So they are not only going to be used for surveillance, but they will be equipped with different weapons. And very important out here is to mention that there are two very important aspects of this particular drone in terms of the ties between India and US. This is a strong messaging which has come with the deal being signed with United States. This is a mega deal. This is not an ordinary deal, Shiv. 31 drones, these MQ-9B drones, they will be equipped with the latest weaponries. They will be used by not only the Indian Navy that has been using two of these drones since 2020. They've been using it for different operational surveillance purposes. And now we are being told that these drones will be deployed at various strategic locations, be it with the Air Force or INS Rajali at Chennai. So all these strategic locations will be having these drones, Shiv. And if we come to the timelines, we see that there are already delays that India is facing with a number of projects with the United States. But for this particular project, a timeline has been set in coming 4 to 5 years. The deliveries have to start. That's what we are being told now. So these are long-range drones, and they have an endurance of around 48 hours. So they can fly together for 48 hours. And also the cameras that they have, they are superb cameras, Shiv. These cameras can capture clear pictures from a very high altitude.
Shivani, thanks very much for that. I apologize for interrupting you, but we've got to go into some important breaking news that's just coming in now. We've got breaking news coming in. India flight from Delhi to Chicago has been diverted to an airport in Canada, in Iqaluit in northern Canada, following a bomb threat, says Air India in a statement. This is the 5th Air India flight to get a bomb threat in just the last 2 days. And I want to read out the Air India statement that's just come in. Flight AI-127 operating from Delhi to Chicago on October the 15th was the subject of a security threat posted online, and as a precautionary measure has landed at Iqaluit Airport in Canada. The aircraft and passengers are being re-screened as per the laid-down security protocol. Air India has activated agencies at the airport to assist the passengers until such time that their journey can resume. So the aircraft has landed at an airport in Canada for security reasons. Air India notes that it and other local airlines have been subject to a number of threats in recent days. Like we said, 5 bomb hoaxes in just the last 2 days. Though all have subsequently been found to be hoaxes, as a responsible airline operator, all threats are taken seriously. The inconvenience to customers is sincerely regretted. Air India is extending all cooperation to authorities in identifying the perpetrators of such threats to ensure that they are held accountable for the disruption and inconvenience caused to passengers, and will consider legal action against those responsible to recover damages incurred by the airline. So the 5th bomb threat to an Air India aircraft, this time in airspace over Canada. The Air India flight AI-127 operating between Delhi and Chicago has chosen to land in Canada. How ironic, given Canada's history with bombing Air India aircraft via Khalistani terrorists who were subsequently protected in that country. But that is, of course, not connected to what we're talking about. This is the Air India flight AI-127 that has chosen to land following an online bomb threat to this particular flight, the 5th in just the last 2 days.